We had this happen. So we don't have to speculate, Michelle. We've seen this movie before. And history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And it wasn't an ETF, but it was GBTC, the trust. So in the last period, 2017, 18, GBTC kind of came into existence, and we saw the price go from 10,000 to 60,000 when fair value was more like 20,000. And that was a crazy move, but it was, again, supply and demand.
Mark Yusko, the founder, chief executive officer, and chief investment officer of Morgan Creek Capital Management, is very certain that Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency by market cap, will be exchanging hands between $100,000 and $150,000 by this time next year. According to Yusko, a renowned hedge fund manager and early investor in the cryptocurrency industry, there are two important upcoming events which in the past have been very bullish for the leading crypto asset. The first is the approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, an event Yusko believes will significantly increase the demand for Bitcoin between later this year and early next year. The other event is the upcoming Bitcoin halving, which is expected to occur in April 2024, when the number of blocks hits 740,000. It will see the Bitcoin block reward fall from 6.25 to 3.125 Bitcoin per block mined. Yusko is quite excited about both events and how they will impact Bitcoin. While the approval of a spot ETF will increase the demand for the crypto asset by making it easier for big money investors to invest in Bitcoin, the halving event will reduce its supply, creating a supply and demand dynamic that would undoubtedly be great for prices. Yusko is very certain that both events will have a huge effect on Bitcoin's price. During a recent discussion with Kitco News, a renowned hedge fund manager gives an example of the events following the creation of Grayscale's GBTC trust a few years back. Yusko explains that the creation of the trust helped Bitcoin move from $10,000 per coin to $60,000. He believes we could get an even more impressive upside move with the approval of BlackRock's spot ETF application, which according to Yusko, will most likely be the first spot Bitcoin ETF to be approved by the SEC. During a discussion, Yusko also explains that the approval of a Bitcoin futures ETF in 2021 was appropriately timed to help depress the crypto asset's price in preparation for the approval of a spot ETF. He compares this intentional depression and suppression of Bitcoin's price to the events leading to the eventual approval of a spot gold ETF years after the approval of a futures ETF based on the leading precious metal. Now, Yusko is certain that regulators are ready to approve a spot ETF, and he believes they will make the announcement anytime soon. We will now bring you clips from Yusko's discussion with Michelle McCory, Kitco's lead anchor and editor-in-chief. Please watch the video to the end, smash the like button, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of our regular uploads. Also, ensure you drop your comments and observations on Yusko's outlook and prediction in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
There was all this rhetoric that we can't have a Bitcoin spot ETF. Oh, but we can have a futures ETF. Well, what does a futures ETF allow you to do? It allows you to create paper assets. And anytime there's an imbalance of paper assets to physical assets, think oil, think natural gas, think wheat, think anything, you can get these big spikes and big crashes. And that's exactly what happened. So people were able, $1 billion flowed into the futures ETF. Well, for every long, there has to be a short. Well, who would be writing those naked shorts? Maybe the same institutions that now are going to get approved to go long at a lower price. Magic. My point on Bitcoin is the halving, it guarantees movement. And why is movement important? Well, and what do I mean by that? Meaning, I'm a miner. If I were a miner, I bought a bunch of machines, I put them in the room, I plugged them in, and I rent that computing power to the network, to the Bitcoin network, and I get paid block rewards. Block rewards are the payment that I receive for providing compute. And my costs are fixed, my electricity is fixed, my machines are fixed. If suddenly, which is in code every 4 years, my rewards get cut in half, I'm out of business, unless the price rises. So what has happened in every halving so far, the price adjusts to make the miners whole. That makes sense. Well, if the price doubles, right? Because the price, the block rewards fall in half, so the price has to double. Well, if your price doubles, what does that do? Well, that attracts speculation. And if speculators come in and then leverage comes in, the price will go from a linear increase to a parabolic increase. And we've seen that every single time. So I can look at what the fair value is of Bitcoin using a Metcalfe's law model. And Tim Peterson has the best one, and I just use his. And it would have told me that in 2017, the fair value was $10,000. So when it hit $20,000, it was destined to go down. And it did, all the way to $3,000 because people got overly pessimistic. And then it rallied, and I could see that the fair value in 2020 was $30,000. But we went to $69,000. So it was going to go down. So I believe fair value today is 55K using that Metcalfe's law model. I believe that every halving 10x's the total value of the network. And that's just because the number of people and the way Metcalfe's law works, and there's an exponential growth factor. And so we started with 1,000, then we went to 10,000, then we went to 100. So I think this halving goes to 100,000 will be the fair value. So fair value will accrete from 555K today to, by the halving next April, May, call it June. So let's call it middle of summer next year. $100,000 will be fair value. But we won't go to 100,000. We will get to 100,000, and then we'll have speculation. Now, how much speculation? Depends on the approval and the timing of the approval and where we are in the adoption cycle and how much of that 300 billion is coming in. It depends on amount of leverage that allows people to increase their buying power. And I think the leverage will be lower this time. And so let's say we blow through that 100K and we're at 150K. That seems reasonable to me. So somewhere between 100 and 150K.
By middle of 2024, after the halving in April.
That seems like a rational response to the halving and to the potential increase in demand from a from a spot ETF.
During a discussion with Matt Corey, Yusko gives his predictions on how soon the SEC is likely to approve a spot Bitcoin ETF and which, if any, of the several applications it is likely to approve first. With a ruling expected for ARK Invest's application on August 13, many are certain that this will set the tone for how the SEC deals with the other applications. During an interview with Bloomberg Television, ARK Invest founder Cathie Wood said she expects the SEC to delay its decision on her firm's application and eventually approve more than one of the applications at the same time. Yusko disagrees. According to the renowned hedge fund manager, the SEC clearly favors BlackRock, meaning they will be pressed to approve the firm's application first even before other firms that file before it. If the need arises, Yusko is certain that the SEC would rather disapprove ARK Invest's application or ask it to refile instead of approving it before BlackRock's application. Here are more clips from the interview.
Nothing against Cathie. I think she's built a great business, and I think she has good insight that there probably will be multiple approvals. But I'm going to stand by my statement that BlackRock will be first. So if they stand by, they meaning the SEC, stand by their deadline, I think they will reject the ARK 21 shares. And full disclosure, we are investors in Amun and 21 shares, so we'd be happy for them to get approval. But I don't see it happening. I really do believe BlackRock will be first. And therefore, there are two, I think, ahead of BlackRock that they either need to push, so extend and pretend, shall we say, or just reject, make them refile and go to the back of the line so BlackRock can be first. If I go back, it was June 15th. Mm-hmm. So I think the 90-day window would be September 15th, right? So my guess is that's when we'll find out for sure. Now, could they push that, as you said, into January? Certainly. And I think they will, again, they being the SEC, will determine the political wins. You know, the squall that we talked about, last time we were together of Hurricane Sam has calmed down a little bit. It's going to heat up a little bit. We're heading into hurricane season here in September, so it's likely that could heat up again. The trial date is set for October, theoretically. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they pushed to January, but look, being first matters a lot. And that's why I believe BlackRock's going to be first. And look, I've been saying that for a while, for over a year. And, people poo-pooed it at first, and now it seems increasingly likely. Look, when Larry Fink, arguably one of the most powerful people in the world in terms of financial concerns, goes on television and says, look, this asset is not going away. And hey, it actually might even be a good place for you, the little guy or gal, to protect your assets against devaluation of the currency. I mean, my eyes rolled back in my head. He said that out loud. I mean, I know we all think it, we all know it, but wait, we're the conspiracy theorists that talk about that, not, well-respected members of the community and the inside saying it. That was something. I wouldn't be surprised if it plays out that 21 shares and I can't remember the other one that's ahead of them in line, either get pushed or get, unapproved or disapproved. And then the BlackRock could get approved as early as that second week of September, depending on the political winds. Look, if Ms. Warren is banging on the drum about, the money laundering and all this bad stuff, it probably gets pushed. If the political winds are saying, hey, Larry needs to make some money to make earnings, let's get him a bunch of AUM. Because look, I think the amount of assets that are going to flow into this thing is massive. It's huge. It's just a big number.
While not giving a specific time for when BlackRock's application could be approved, Yusko says it could be close as September 15, 90 days after the leading asset management firm filed its application on June 15. Yusko is also certain that the news of the approval will have a profound effect on Bitcoin's price, which will then be magnified when the halving event comes around next year. What are your thoughts on Mark Yusko's interview and Bitcoin price prediction? Do you agree with his $100,000 to $150,000 prediction by mid-2024? Please drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.